Okay, let's get started. Before I introduce myself, I want to let you know if you have any questions during this presentation, you could ask that during the presentation. You don't have to wait to the end. And then I will give you some time at the very end too for additional questions. So feel free to type it in the chat box or to just ask away. I'm Nick Schaefer, Director of Career Development. And as you see on this slide here, Casey also works in career development. So we're a two-person office. And you'll see our contact information in the middle of this slide. Um, our email, cd@gmercu.edu, and our extension, but the best way is to email us since we are completely remote. And then our website at the bottom, and I'm going to mention that website a few times, but that's where you'll find a lot of good information on there. So we are going to focus on resume writing tonight, but I am going to touch upon quickly a couple other items. I want to discuss our services and resources just to let you know how we can help you now and even after you graduate. Of course, resume writing and a little bit on cover letter writing since it goes well with resume writing. So what does our department do? What does career development do? We can help you with your resume and cover letter. That includes reviewing them with you and offering suggestions to improve them. So you can schedule an appointment with us to go over it. You can email it us for review. We'll be happy to help you make it even stronger. Depending upon your major and what year you're in, we can help you with your internship and job search. That includes connections, um, tips and resources and strategies, all those good things that help improve your successful internship or job search. We can assist you with your interview. That could be a phone practice interview. That can be a video practice interview. That can be us just talking about interviewing. So whatever your need is for interviewing, we can assist you. And we still, even though we are completely remote and we're still in the pandemic, we still offer a number of career fairs. All of them are virtual, of course, a number of workshops and events, and I'll show you where you could find that information towards the end of this presentation. And just as a reminder at the bottom, we are completely having virtual appointments. So we can, help you through email, phone, or video. So if you want to schedule an appointment with us, you can email us. The email's at the bottom, and just let us know how you want us to help you and some days and times that work well for you. Just email us cd@gmercu.edu. Some of our main resources now. Those three websites come in handy for a number of reasons. The first one is the career development website, gmercu.edu/cd. And that's where you'll find resume samples, resume information, cover letter samples, information on LinkedIn, information on job searching, interview tips and resources, all sorts of graduate school, all sorts of good career information on that website. Some of you may be familiar with Handshake. That is our job and internship posting website. It's a very good website. So if you haven't been on there, please check it out. You already have an account. As a Gwinnett student, it's the same username and password as when you log into the GMercyU portal. You can get the Handshake directly from that URL. You could go to our website and you'll see information on there, or Handshake is also on the portal as well. Big Interview. If you're ever looking to do a practice interview, we have an online AI software program called Big Interview where you can practice interview questions and record yourself. You can watch the recording to see how you did. You could share your answers with somebody in career development to analyze them and offer feedback, or you could share it with a faculty member, whatever works best for you, or you could keep it private and review it yourself. So it's a very, very good practice interview website. It's completely free for Gwinnett students and alumni, and you could break it down by industry too. So if you are a business student like finance, you can do questions that are more geared towards that industry. If you are a nursing student, you could choose questions related to nursing. So it does a really good job of asking you industry specific interview questions. And before we get into resume writing, I wanted to mention if you want to follow us on social media, we do post daily jobs, internships, events, and tips on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I didn't write LinkedIn on here, but if you're on LinkedIn, you can follow us as well. Does anybody have any questions on any of those items before we jump into resume writing? Okay. Um, just as a reminder, if you have any questions as we're going along discussing resumes, feel free to ask it. You could type in the chat box too. I'll get to it, when the time's appropriate, but I'd be happy to answer your questions. So let's start with some basics because it's important to understand the basics to have a strong resume. First of all, resume is your chance to make a first good impression. It helps you land the interview, which ultimately helps you get the job. So you are showcasing, you are highlighting some of your top traits, your skills, your experience, and your knowledge. Your document should be based on yourself, your own background, your interest, your goals. So although I mentioned before, we have a number of sample resumes on our website, including sample resumes of all different majors, your resume should be unique towards you. So review those samples and then make it your own. And I'm going to show you one generic sample tonight too. You do want to bring your resume to life. You don't want it to be boring. You want to be a little bit creative, add some, impact to it. And one of the ways you do that is by having action verbs. You don't want to use first person. You don't want to write, I did this, I did that. You want to start with action verbs or action phrases. And I'll show you a little bit more of that in a few slides. Probably one of the most important things I'll share tonight is the bottom one. You want to personalize your resume and your cover letter when you're applying for jobs. You want to personalize as much as possible. What does that mean? Well, you want to give the employer the impression that this is the job you want, this specific job, and you want to work at this employer. So you could absolutely do that a lot with your cover letter, and you could do it a little bit with your resume too. So when you can, personalize those documents. Probably the two most important aspects of your resume are broken down into two categories, your content and your format. I want to mention though that so many people focus the majority of their time just on how well written the document is, and sometimes they ignore the format. Well, if you ignore the format and your format looks a little sloppy, it's going to be hard for the employer or for the recruiter to review your document, hard to read. So they both need to be strong. Some areas on their content include your job experience, whether it's related experience or other experience. If you're a nursing student, your clinicals, it could be volunteering for any major, internships, depending upon your major, and for all major student clubs or professional associations. This includes things like Griffin Student Leadership Institute, mission trips, alternative spring break if you did one before the pandemic, or if you did anything virtually. All those things stand out and help you be a stronger candidate versus the other competition. Formatting, and I'll show you a document a little bit that goes over formatting a little bit more in depth, but it needs to be consistent and eye-catching. Your margins, your font size, your spacing, your headings, those things need to be set up well, or your document's going to be challenging to read. And I see this all the time. I review a lot of resumes each week, and the formatting is usually one of the areas that we need to improve upon when reviewing the resume. So what are some characteristics of good resumes? Well, I mentioned the action words, but you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to have action words just for the sake of having action words. So make sure you use them correctly. It needs to be consistent with the formatting throughout the document. What I mean by that is, let's say you have 5 different jobs and you bold one job title, and maybe you don't bold a couple other ones and you bold the last one. Well, that's not consistent. So your bold should all line up. The same things you bold should be bolded throughout the document, and so forth. So make sure those things are consistent throughout the entire document. Your resume needs to be easy to read and eye-catching. So put yourself in the shoes of the employer. When you're reviewing this document, usually you're reviewing a lot of different documents. You have a number of candidates you're looking at. So you need to make sure that they could find the certain categories or certain sections of your resume very quickly. You don't want to have massive blocks of text. So if you have giant paragraphs on your current resume, you do want to use bullets because it makes it easier to read. Massive blocks of text, if somebody's looking at 10 lines of just a big paragraph, it's hard to read. So make sure, you break it up and you make it easier. Remember, a few reminders about your resume. It's not a list of everything you've ever done in your life. It's not a biography. So you might want to have one document that you have everything in it. So then when you're applying for a job or internship, you pick and choose what you're going to use for that specific job and internship. And then you save that document as another document. Because you want your resume to be at least somewhat related, everything in it, to the position you are applying for. You don't want to have a lot of wasted information that's taking up space just for the sake of taking up space. Because then it gets a lot of really cluttered and again, becomes difficult to read. And remember, your resume is not a fixed generic document. Make sure it's based on your own background, your knowledge, your own skills, and what you are looking for. The bottom one might sound obvious, but I like to remind students and alumni a lot because there's probably not a week that doesn't go by that I don't see some sort of, whether it's a spelling error, grammatical error, or a typo. We are all humans. We all make mistakes, including faculty and staff. That's why it's important to have your document reviewed so you could be confident that your document is free of any kind of errors. Some action word examples. You do want to be descriptive. That's what the whole point of using action words is. But if you look at the line right here, past and present, you want to make sure your tenses are correct. And what I like to tell students and alumni is, there's a chance the employer might not care what tense you use if you use past tense in a present job, but you might as well do it right. It takes 10 seconds to make sure you use the correct tenses. So let's go through a few examples here. The first bullet, provide individual and group therapy. So that's speaking present tense. Now the second bullet, let's say this is a past internship or a past job, marketed and marathon, created, instruct. So you want to make sure you use action words in the correct way and use action words in the correct tense as well. So at the bottom here, I wrote, how do you know what words to use? I get that question a lot from students and alumni when I'm helping their resume. It's a great question and it's something that's worth checking into. So I'm going to show you two main ways, but before I do, I want to mention that it's important to start learning and becoming familiar with the career lingo of your field, because you could implement this stuff in your resume, your cover letter, and in an interview. So you could really impress the employer when you're speaking their language.
No,
Is there a question? So there's two ways to
and I end up walking
do
on the
this.
grass or in the snow. It's too tight.
There's two ways you can do this when looking for the correct career lingo, understand the correct career lingo. You look at job description websites, so like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Handshake, like I mentioned Handshake before, and just review jobs just for the sake of learning about them and see what kind of words they use, how to describe the skills, the qualifications, the things that are needed for this job. So check out job descriptions, and that will help you understand what to include maybe in your resume, cover letter, or discuss during an interview. And this bottom website is called ONET. It's through the Department of Labor. And I'm going to show you this website here. Can everybody see ONET on here at the top? Okay. So does anybody want to tell me of a job or a career field you're looking for? And I'll use that as an example.
Nursing.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm just going to type in nurse. So when it pops up, I'm going to click on register nurse here. And for any job, basically, you could see the different tasks. They're common tasks. And, obviously this is not for every single position. Skills, knowledge, regular skills. The other one was technological skills, abilities, and work activities. And why am I showing you this? Again, this will help you think of, okay, am I going to have a skills section on my resume? Maybe I'll review some of these skills, review some of the skills on the job description, and choose which ones I'm strong at, and then include them on your resume. Maybe talk about it during an interview too. So this will help you with writing those documents. So let's jump back to the PowerPoint here. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I have a question.
Yes.
It was back, I think, on one of the other slides, just about which jobs you should be including on your resume. Like, should you include, I know you said it's not like everything you've ever done. So, like, should you just be including jobs that are pertinent to what you're getting ready to do?
Yeah, I'll go in more depth of that in a few minutes. But one thing I want to mention is if depending upon your major or the career you're seeking, you can have two sections for your jobs. You can call one related experience, and then you call one other experience. So you choose all the ones that are at least somewhat relevant towards the field you're seeking under related experience, and the rest of them under other. And then if you have a ton of ones that aren't related, maybe you only include the last few rather than going so far back. And also for the ones that are not related, maybe you only have one or two bullets or you have no bullets for them and save the space for the ones in the related experience section. So when I show you a sample resume in a few minutes, I think that will be a good visual for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I like to point out some common mistakes that we see when seeing resumes because I think that will help you avoid them. This is actually taken from a survey of human resources and hiring managers. Some of the common ones they see. The ones in red are the ones that I see a lot. So I mentioned the spelling errors and the grammar before, but typos is a big thing I see. So for example, if somebody is writing a year, they write 2021 and they have an extra zero or you have an extra one, things like that you want to avoid. Um, some spelling errors I see a lot or is the word activities or experience. Even Gwyneth, people misspelling their own school name. So you want to make sure you get those items correct. Poor formatting. I mentioned it a few times already. I can't say it enough though. You can't just focus on the content. Your format needs to be strong. Otherwise, the content won't matter. Um, at the very bottom here, it's not really a mistake, but for me, it's a waste of space. So if you have the phrase on your resume, references available upon request, you could completely take that off or remove it from your resume because it's one of those things I like to say is a no dust statement. Of course, you're going to make them available if you want the job ultimately. So you don't need to put that on your resume. It's sort of like an old school thing that's not, hasn't been used in a while. So remove that, just save the space for more important things. Using first person, I mentioned that on your resume, the only spot that it is okay usually to use first person would be in your top section if you have a profile, objective, qualifications, summary, something like that. That's where it's fine. Anywhere else, I would tell you to completely avoid using first person. The document is understood to be about you, written by you. So imagine if everybody started every single bullet with I did this, I did that. It'd be very boring. Nothing would stand out. So some employers consider this to be a pretty big error. So make sure you don't, make those errors yourself. We already talked about the action verb. So I'm going to show you action verb document in a few minutes. And here's another important one, the third bullet in red here. If your current resume is a template, or a pre-made resume, I really strongly urge you to start over in a blank Word document. Employers really dislike templates. And from my standpoint, templates don't look good. There's a lot of weird spacing, strange font sizes. It just isn't easy to maneuver stuff around the resume. So it will make your life easier and a document will look more professional and more formal if you just use a blank Word document. If you have any issues with that, I'll be happy to help you out with that. But if you have a pre-made resume, just know, start over, blank Word document. So here are some generic samples. So it doesn't mean you're going to have all these samples, or maybe you only have a couple of these, but here are some ideas for your resume sections. I like to show this before I show a resume sample. Of course, you need your name on your resume, your contact information, but a more recent trend with contact information is people leave off their street address. That's fine. Ultimately, you have to put it on a job application. So if you just want to put your name, city, and state, and your email and phone number, that's fine. But you obviously need your email and phone number too, so you can reach out to you for an interview. I think it's pretty important to have some sort of intro section at the top. So whether it's an objective, qualifications, skills, profile, summary, just all different sorts of names. Take a look at our resume samples. You'll see all these ideas on there, and decide which one you feel fits for your own resume and that you like. Um, if you are a current student, I would say your education needs to be up high. If you are an alum and graduated a number of years ago, your education could be down lower, but your education should be up high. That way they know what degree you're ready to obtain, and or if you're a career changer, what degree you are seeking currently and changing into. So depending upon, I got this question before too, depending upon your work experience background, there's a few different ways you can list your jobs on your resume. You can have one section and list everything under one section called work experience. You can have two sections. You can have one called related experience. And let's choose an example. Let's say you're a nursing major. You could call the section nursing experience, healthcare experience, or related experience, whatever word that you want. If you are an accounting student, you could even call it accounting experience or related experience. So it depends upon your background. And then if you have other jobs, let's say you currently work at Wawa or something that's not directly related to your career, you could put it under a section called other experience, or sometimes it's called additional experience. So either one, that way it breaks it up and it keeps the focus on the related experience section. If you're involved on campus with some student clubs, organizations, a sport, any of those things like SNAP or SAC or SGA, you can call a section leadership activities. Employers tend to really like the word leadership, so I think that will help you stand out. If you're involved off campus even, whether it's training, conferences, associations, you could create a section called professional development. So there's more sections than this, but I just want to give you a taste of, some of the ideas out there. So I'm going to bring up our resume sample in a second, but before I do, I want to mention that this is how you would see the samples on our website. Go to our website, gmercyu.edu/cd. You click on students and alumni, and you just scroll down to the resume section. And you'll see resumes based on each academic area. So we have arts and science majors, business majors, education majors, and nursing and health profession majors there. So I'm going to stop the share and bring up a resume example here. One thing I want to mention with this resume example, this is just a generic example. Some of these headings might not even pertain to you. So I just want to kind of show you some of the things that we discussed. Okay, so at the top, you have your name and your contact information. I like it centered. It doesn't mean you have to have it centered. Some people left justify it too. I think centering it balances out the page nicely. Qualification section, it's sort of showcasing a few of the, your top traits. But let me mention this first sentence here. It says, highly creative individual with extensive leadership experience seeking the position of marketing associate at Ambler Communications. That's a made up place. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is I mentioned earlier on about personalizing your document. This is one way to do it. Just by simply mentioning the company's name, I think makes it a little bit more personal. It shows that you want this position and you want to work at this place. So you want to try to do this as much as possible on your resume. Your resume is tough to do it that many times, but your cover letter, you could do it a bunch. Before I go section by section, I want to mention the consistency thing I mentioned before. So look at this section heading. Qualifications is centered, bold caps. Education is related experiences, additional experience, and so forth. So all the headings are set up the same way. All the bullets line up going down the page. All the job titles are bolded. So that's what I meant by consistency when I mentioned that a few slides earlier. Education, I can't urge you enough, but make sure you write your degree and major correctly. I would say pretty frequently I'll get a student that says they're for the degree and major, bachelor's of nursing. That's not correct. Or bachelor's of management, bachelor's of whatever. It's Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in whatever it is, depending upon your major. So make sure you write it correctly. Little things matter when it comes to a resume. If you do a bunch of little things wrong, it's going to stand out for the wrong reasons. So this student's a management major. So we created a section called related experience, and here's a related experience job. And here's an additional experience job. It's a position at Iron Hill. And it's not saying discounting the position. We all have had positions, like this, we need them. So, but this student put the bullets for the related experience section and didn't put one here. That's fine too. But if you have some jobs like this and you want to include a bullet, I would recommend that you include some transferable skills in that bullet. So you're not just going to tell them what your job duties are. You could say something like, provided excellent customer service in a busy environment. I'm just kind of spitballing that, but you're showing some transferable skills that would be important for any job. Volunteering, here's how you would set it up if you have some volunteering. You could set it different than this, but here's one way to set it up. Professional development, if you went to some workshops, the conference even, things like that. If you are on LinkedIn, one way to put it is set up your LinkedIn on the bottom like you did here. For additional information, please visit. You can put your LinkedIn URL, or you could put your LinkedIn URL underneath your email address too. Two things though. If you are going to put your LinkedIn URL on your resume, make sure you customize your URL. It doesn't have a bunch of symbols and numbers. It takes 10 seconds to do that. So as you see in my name, it's just Nick Schaefer. It's not Nick Schaefer 127 ? Exclamation point, all these things. So make sure it looks presentable, but also make sure your LinkedIn page is up to date too. I can help you with that. We have a very good LinkedIn tip sheet on our website, and I can help you use LinkedIn too.
Would you agree that a resume is better when it's one page?
Great question. I get that a lot. So I'm glad you asked that. Let me start out by saying it's more than okay for your resume to be multiple pages. However, your resume, if it's multiple pages, it needs to be relevant towards the job and career that you're seeking. If you have a bunch of information that is not relevant, then it should be one page. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I would say if you plan on having your resume reviewed by myself or Casey in career development, if it's more than one page, don't worry about it. I'd rather see you include more information than I could recommend what to condense or what to take out. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. I want to show you our resume checklist. Let me go back here. So this checklist is available on our website, so you don't have to memorize this here. It's right above our sample resumes on our website. But we have format, and down below is content. So it gives you a bunch of ideas to double check your own resume to make sure you're meeting these standards. So it goes over to font, spacing. I find a lot of resumes have spacing issues. I tell you how to correct it right here. And consistency of mentions and bullets, things like that. Let's go back to font for a second. I'm very boring when it comes to resumes. I like to use a font like Times New Roman. It doesn't mean you have to, but don't try to be too creative and too cute here. Use something that's readable. Same thing with font size. Size 10 is too small. Don't try to jam your resume in one page by making the font size too small or your margins too small. You're better off condensing or taking out stuff than doing that. I recommend if you use something like Times New Roman, your font should not be lower than size 11. Content, it gives you some ideas for sections and some information for that too. So this will help you make sure your resume is strong in both areas. So once again, this is on our website. Some additional resume tips that I think will be helpful for you is don't wait to the last second to do this. Don't send out your first draft. You don't want to make a mistake on your resume and be like, oh, I should have caught that. Have it reviewed by us. In most circumstances, we'll get your resume back to you in 1 to 2 days at the most if you email it to us. And we'll be happy to review it a few times too. It's not just a one and done. You can even do things like email us your resume and then we could discuss it in a Zoom presentation, a Zoom discussion too. So whatever works best for your time. Lots of times if you're busy, we'll just email you back the information, you fix it, email back, and we'll email you back some more suggestions. That way it can be done on your own time. Know the position and employer. I tell students when you're applying for an internship or job, have the description in front of you, the internship or job description. And that way you could, make sure your resume is geared towards that position. Maybe even use some of the skills they mentioned. Directly address some of that information. And it depends what year you're in, how much experience you have. But remember, your resume is not just about your job duties. It's about accomplishments. So go through your jobs, go through your internships or anything like that, and think to yourself, is there anything I created, anything I helped create, anything I helped improve, things like that. And if you have numbers too, that's important. Include that in your resume because it stands out more too. So I have one slide in cover letters and then we'll take questions on both, but I just want to mention that I get this question a lot. Do I even need one? Yes, you do. Unless they tell you you don't need one, a cover letter increases your chance, a well-written cover letter increases your chance of getting an interview. It helps you stand out because there are a number of candidates who are not writing one. So if you write a good one and you have a good resume, it's going to increase your chances of getting an interview. We have good sample cover letters on our website too. I think we have 3 or 4 that will help you create a cover letter. Some are basic, some are more advanced, some are more creative. So you could choose a style that fits what you're applying for. Your cover letter, the third bullet here, absolutely should be geared towards the job and employer. You should directly address in your cover letter, why do you believe you'll be successful at this specific position? Why you want to work at this specific place? So that should be addressed in your cover letter. And the same place where you can find our resume samples, you'll see cover letter samples there too. Job fairs and workshops. I mentioned at the very beginning, we have a number of career fairs, virtual career fairs, and employer events. So check out our events page. We just updated it last week. I think there's a good 10 or 12 events on there. If you go to our website and click on events, it's on the right side. You could see a number of career fairs coming up. We have one for education majors. We have one, anybody interested in social sciences or nonprofit, business, nursing and healthcare, social sciences, which is psych, behavioral health, human services, social work, those areas, and a couple others. So you could find a lot of that stuff on there too. Shake also has a number of virtual fairs too that are sponsored by us, but we put them on there for you to see, decide if it's a good fit for you. So now at this time, I'm going to take questions on whether you want to ask a question about resume, cover letter, or any of those things I mentioned tonight. Does anybody have any questions? You can ask it or type in the chat box, whatever is easier for you.
I did have a question.
Yes.
What do people have told me in the past, maybe to put a picture on the resume? Is a picture of you something that you suggest or stay away from it?
What's your major?
Education.
So you're the only major that's possible to put your picture on.
Okay.
Any other major, I would say no, because you want to stay to be a little bit more conservative or formal. Are you elementary ed or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I would actually, Allison, I would actually recommend that you not put your picture on there. That's just my opinion. I think for education though, you could even use a little bit more creativity in other resumes. You could even make your name in color for things like that. You can spice it up, but I would stay away from a picture, but you could put like a logo or something on there. Some people make a logo of their name or their initials.
Okay.
But I personally don't like photos on a resume. It leads people to be, stereotypes and things, and I think you want to stay away from that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do people have? Is everybody confident about their resume?
No, not at all. That's why I came here.
So what I would say then is if you're starting from scratch or you need to update your resume, just go through some of the information on our website. Do your best. Don't try to make it perfect. And then either email to me to be reviewed or email me to schedule an appointment and we'll go over your resume one-on-one. So I will help you make it stronger. Just put the time into update it or start it.
So you mentioned also, I'm sorry, Jessica.
Go ahead.
For like experiences, I should put every clinical that I've been to?
No, actually, if you go through, we have a bunch of nursing examples on our website. There's 2 different ways we show you how to set up your clinical rotations, because if you list every clinical separately, it becomes very redundant. So go through the nursing examples, you'll see how to set that up. It saves you space and it makes it easy and it stands out too. So if you can't find it, let me know, but it's right under the nursing packet on our website.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's very easy to set up too.
So I'm getting ready to apply for an externship. When I do this, I should be making my resume and cover letter specific for that.
Yes. Did you say externship or internship?
I don't even remember right now.
Okay. Yeah. So when you can, sometimes your resume is only going to have minor changes depending upon the employer or the position. Sometimes it has a little bit more than minor. It's more of your cover letter that has the most changes. But when you make it as best you can, gear it, geared towards the job, the internship, or the employer.
Okay.
And sometimes it's the only spot you could do it is at the top at your objective or qualifications. But sometimes when you're writing your bullets describing your past jobs, you can maybe change a bullet, talking about a certain experience, skill, or knowledge that's related to the position you were applying for. Okay, we got some questions in the chat box here. Thank you so much. Well, as everybody's thinking of their last second questions, I want to mention this slide. Here's how you reach me. The email's at the top, cd@gmercyu.edu, and the website, see sample resumes at the bottom, gmercyu.edu/cd.
Is this the email I'm going to use to ask for the recording of this?
Yep, I check that email. I give that out instead of giving my Schaefer.n because people misspell my last name all the time. So if you email me this email, I will email you the recording tomorrow because I have to give it some time to save on the cloud, and then I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you said the clinical, an example of how to put your clinicals is on the website, right?
Yes, we have our resume samples broken down by academic area. So for you, it'll be under nursing and health professions. And I think it's the first two resumes have 2 different ways to set up your clinical rotations. Any additional questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. This was very, very helpful.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you coming on tonight, and enjoy your night. If you want a copy of this presentation, just send me an email. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Have a great night, everyone.